Today we're going to be doing a reaction to a video called How the Greatest Gamer of All Time Left His Fate to RNG. This is the story of Flash playing random in the ASL. I was casting this event. This was crazy to be part of. There was a lot of speculation beforehand. Will he actually be able to pull this off? We all knew that Flash was really good with the other races. Excellent Protoss, excellent Zerg. He did seem to have the deepest understanding of the game. We were saying at the time, if he pulls this off, this is going to be the craziest thing that ever happens in esports history. Let's go ahead and hop into this video. I'm going to add my own input here.
We've talked about Flash before. He's the greatest gamer of all time. And no, it's not up for debate. The story we're telling today...
Yeah, and it is not up for debate, by the way. I get so annoyed when people point out Faker or these other guys that have been top in their game for a couple years. Flash has been dominant on a level that I don't know if anybody's going to catch up to. I hope somebody does. That would be very exciting, but nobody has come close to what Flash has done.
Today continues right after where the previous one left off. After making history by winning his 4th ASL title at ASL 8, Flash was defeated by Queen at ASL 9.
The only thing that's really here is this one turret that's popping shots up. That's it, GG! Whoa! Queen defeats Flash. Crazy.
At ASL 10, he planned to pick random for the entire event. On paper, picking random in a game with only 3 factions may not seem too difficult, especially compared to games like Smash or Street Fighter, which have huge roster.
Just to jump in real quick here. I mean, Flash was winning so much at ASL. It did concern some people in the esports ecosystem. Like, is this going to become too redundant? Is this going to be a thing that is maybe not going to be interested anymore? I mean, the reality is all the Starcraft 1 pros were so good. They brought such good games, but Flash was so exceptionally good and could make games look so one-sided. Yeah, there was a general concern. I mean, is this going to become boring? Is this going to become not interesting? And yeah, I'll let him talk for a second.
But the sheer complexity of Brood War, paired with it literally being the highest APM game in history, means that playing random is just unheard of.
And keep in mind, with random, you have obviously all the different matchups, but you also have all the different maps. And anybody who's had any experience with even a little bit of StarCraft, the maps create so many different little nuanced things you have to know. Whether it's your push, whether it's just trying to expand, what you can or cannot hide in your base or in a proxy. There's so many variables that the only way that you could really play random would be to have such a good intuition and such a good general sense of how the game operates. And the only time we really ever saw players be successful with random in StarCraft 1, more so than StarCraft 2, but in StarCraft 2 as well, is within the first 2 years. The first 2 years of a game, you can play random generally, and if you kind of just know RTS or just have a better sense than other players, you can do it. XDS Gur did that. There were a couple other players. I personally, in the very start of the game, did play random as well. I was totally fine letting the game pick for me and just trying to have fun and figure out what to do. And then as time passes, like for me personally, I realized, okay, well, I think I prefer the mirror matchup PvP the most. I didn't like ZVZ or TVT. So I ended up switching into Protoss. And this is kind of what all the pros did. Eventually it got competitive enough. You realize you had to devote most of your time to a specific race so that you could really map it out so that you would be viable when you went to tournaments.
So in StarCraft, you know, it's such a deep game that takes so many years to become like a pro level player in. There's so many tiny nuances to every race in every single matchup on every single map in every single situation, because like StarCraft 1 games are more different from each other than I think really any other esport out there. Like every single game is really its own thing, and like you'll see like kind of recurring patterns, but like you really have to get down into the nitty-gritty to be able to play situations correctly. And if you take a player that's like, let's say they're playing random, well, I mean, at most they're playing 1/3 as much as you in any situation. And it becomes insane, because there's like nowadays with all the pros streaming, you'll actually see the very best pros coaching slightly lesser pros. And even they, the slightly lesser pros that are still in ASL, are learning like amazing complex secrets and nuances to the game from the higher level pros, right? So there's no way to really cover everything. There's no way to know everything, and there'll be like these very small fringe situations that you're getting in trouble with a lot. It's too much. Like StarCraft itself, playing one race is almost too much. But when you try to add in playing everything, well, you have to use what random has given you, which is the surprise factor.
Oh, it's just so fantastic.
What is
In
this?
short, the cons
What
of
was
playing
that?
random.
What is this shot?
In short,
Okay.
the cons of playing random heavily outweigh the pros. Winning ASL as random against the best players in the world? Forget about it. Flash was gonna come in, maybe have a couple of clippable moments, but he was gonna get smacked, right?
You know, obviously the cheap cop out is he's the best ever. But he really is. Like, if you were to, you know, give people like scores from like 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 on all the different things that make a good StarCraft player, he literally maxes out everything. Like, no one even considers themselves close to him. Like, you can ask the second best player in the world, they're like, oh no, he's so much better than me. So there's certainly that he's just so good at everything. But I think that the main thing that really allows Flash, or allowed Flash, to utilize random to such a high level, his unbelievably deep understanding of the game. Like, he sees the game very differently, I think, than everyone else. Before the
Yeah, I mean, my experience with watching Flash is, yeah, he just seems to know exactly where the game can and cannot go in really chaotic moments. I think we've all played games of StarCraft where we're trying, we think we have an idea of where the opponent might be or what's there or not there, and a lot of times we're wrong or we get close. And when you hit that moment, it feels really good. And he's so often able to just navigate a game, whether it is a dull, uneventful game where both sides are just macroing, to a crazy, cheesy game where it's almost impossible to recreate because of the chaos that happened and the fact that the game is still going on. And he's able to do that not just with Terran, but with the other races as well. Now, one of the things I'm waiting for, I want to talk about, is the benefits random gives you. Because you can talk about how hard it is to know all that, but random does have a starting out advantage because your opponent does know your race and you know your opponent's race. So your opponent doesn't know what matchup they're in. I want to talk about that more, but I want to see if they talk about that here.
random run, Flash was messing around with the other races a bit more. He actually, at one point, his Terran was #1 on the ladder and his Protoss was #7 on the ladder. And in fact, his Protoss had the second highest win rate in the world. So he was already kind of showing, and he was like literally beating the very best players with Protoss already. You know, Zerg is kind of a different bag, so he wasn't doing quite as well with Zerg because it's so different, and Protoss is just kind of an easier race to play. But that was certainly kind of pointing towards, you know, his overall strength, the fact that he was able to like basically beat all the other pro gamers with another race on top of that.
Before his official competitive debut as a random player at ASL 10, Flash partook in 3 best-of-3 show matches
Fuck this game!
Gonna pause my alert.
This!
Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it, Zerman64.
Zaramnas64 just subscribed. Love the history.
Appreciate it, man. Forgot my alerts were on.
Best, Bisu, and Queen. After losing in Game 3 to Best and Queen, and beating Bisu 2-0, it seemed that fans' expectations were confirmed. While Flash was extremely well-versed with Terran and Protoss, his Zerg needed a lot of work. And if he was going to...
And one thing to note is that operationally, Terran and Protoss are more similar to each other, and Zerg is kind of its own thing. That's not to say that it's harder or easier, but I think anybody who's played Protoss and tried to play Terran, or played Terran and tried to play Protoss, just the fact that the units come from the same... the units are produced in the same manner. The workers come out incrementally from the command center or the nexus, or, you know, the gateways. You know, you could replace that with a barracks. There are differences, of course, but when you compare that to the way that Larva develops and the way that Zerg's production, with everything coming from the hatchery, occurs, it is a little bit of a different thing.
pull off an ASL random win, he was going to need a bit of luck. Eventually, the day when the final boss, the ultimate weapon, when God himself was going to pick random in the round of 16. For his first ever competitive match as random, at ASL 10, Flash was going up against the Protoss player, Free. As the two loaded into the game, fans held their breath.
So I'm just going to talk about the benefits of random in case they don't get to this. And I don't want to take away from Flash's accomplishments, but the reality is Brood War is such a specific, nuanced game that all the decisions you make from the placement of your very first building depend on what your opponent's race is. And Protoss is a very good example of that. Versus Zerg, you generally want to have the pylon at your expansion. Versus Terran, you want to get a Dragoon out really fast and make a pylon and gate in your main. Versus Protoss, you want to make a gateway really fast in your main, but you probably want to get a Zealot first. So it generates an opening disadvantage for the player they're against. And there are similar situations with Zerg and with Terran that they have to deal with that as well. And the question is, do you take a risk and pretend to play against a certain race to hope that you're going to get even the normal build you want to have out? Or do you instead do a very middle-of-the-road build, which could be predictable for that random player, and maybe they try to counter that?
Waiting to see who Flash's first official random race would be.
This is a Terran.
테란 역시 우주의 땡김의 법칙. 아 이럴 것 같더라.
And this is something that didn't really occur to
Flash's
me.
ASL random debut was
Yeah, you can random as Terran. That's such an advantage. That's crazy, right? And I remember casting this, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, I guess that can happen. And so now you have a situation where he's literally his main race, and the other guy doesn't even know what he's up against. So you're playing against Flash with a disadvantage.
on his main race, Terran. When Free scouts Flash's base and realizes what he's up against, you can see the confidence just flood out of him.
I want to look at everyone. Look at Free's face. Free is on the right here. Look at his face as he sees Terran. Ah, there it is. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there was that very powerful game he had against Free, where he went into Terran and just smashed him. If he had chosen Terran in that game, I would have been surprised. Right? If he had prepped and chosen Terran and prepped that map for that matchup, I would have been surprised with how hard he smashed him. So that was like, oh wow. And you know, I remember feeling kind of bad for Free. That's like, well, what are you gonna do? He got his main race and he just stomped you.
Meeting Flash in the winner's set was another Protoss player, Snow. Flash rolled Protoss in Game 1 and showcased just how well prepared he was.
This was
using a hidden base.
astonishing, by the way. This was one of the smartest plays. I do talk about it in the actual match, but this map specifically, this is a very obscure location in the top left. PvP is probably the hardest matchup to just get free scouts and spot hidden bases, because you're so concerned with the possibility of DTs or counterattacks from Dragoons or Reaver pushes. And so Flash slow plays it, takes this top left base, and then just slowly takes out his natural. So Snow is misled to believe that he's ahead the entire game when he's behind.
Himself the win on map 1.
Hardest matchup to scout, AJ, not hardest matchup, but hardest matchup to it's hidden bases are very good in PvP. And the fact that Flash isn't maining Protoss, Snow might just think he has a bad
in the second
read on
match,
this.
Flash swept the set 2-0 and moved on to the round of 8.
So that was impressive. The Protoss versus Protoss game that was on Eclipse, I feel like that showed a lot of the way he was thinking about it, the way he kind of snuck the expansion to the side. He realizes, for instance, you're not sending out extra probes for scouting in this matchup in the general meta game. You can't spend an observer on the side there because it's so tight.
Exactly.
He just kind of like really played those mind games.
Observers have to stay with your army to spot DTs, and you know, or you need to have an observer over your natural to see a Reaver come in. So hiding the base was a smart move, and the fact that Snow just kind of let Flash get ahead was huge.
To get that advantage with that, when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, this is really going to show people the kind of the thought process that's going into a lot of his plays.
While Flash avoided playing Zerg in the first 2 rounds of the tournament, his luck was bound to run out. In the round of 8 against Terran player Rush, the worst case scenario finally showed itself. For his opponent, that is. In this set, Flash played each race once and swept the series with a dominant 3-0.
All right.
Sorry, everybody.
Well,
I hate being right.
starts out 1-0.
Yeah, this should be a win.
The kind of reactions I remember the most were when Rush was getting destroyed and like everything was falling apart. And Rush has a very good frustrated, I'm destroyed face that he puts on. And yeah, I like Rush quite a bit. So that was kind of fun to see his reaction when every single thing he did got like hard countered and he was playing against the wrong race and the wrong build every single time.
Again, he might have a very good shot coming up here. Oh! How many was that?
And the fact that he just smashed Rush like that, it was like, well, at that point, I'm like, baby, you know, we're already in the round of 4. Like anything can happen at this point. At that point, I was really feeling, because when you hit the round of 4, these are like the gods of Brood War that could win the ASL at any time, even over Flash. He doesn't win every single tournament. So I did feel after the round of 8 that it's like, okay, from here, he needs to get the right races and the right spawns on the right maps, and then he can do it. But he can't do it like he did to Rush. Like nothing else will look like that again.
In the round of 4, Flash played the Zerg player Soma. This was going to be his most difficult challenge yet.
Yeah, I was Soma's so good, especially at like tactics early on, and I think he's a really good example of like a modern player that really knows a lot of the nuance on maps and in matchups where you can really punish a player. I was so curious how this was going to pan out.
Win and move on to the finals, Flash had to win a best of 7 series. Luck would have to be on his side.
Okay, so that is Soma.
Oh, he got
Flash is Zerg, CVC.
One thing that I don't think is going to get covered in this, I don't expect the person who made this to know, this map was a problem in the tournament. This map was so weird, and having an island map like this, if you think playing against random is hard, getting the first few building blocks set up in the matchup, try playing on an island map. It's insane. I would love to see Flash come back and play random again on a map where we just have maybe better maps. Because this map, there was a lot of moments where it's like, okay, like in this case, it's ZVZ. We all know ZVZ comes down to mutas, right? So it's like, you know, well, he's just going to get his mutas out faster, and that's going to be that. And the other guy can't compete because he doesn't know what he's up against. Yeah, he's going to win on his numbers because his build is better. That's crazy.
At the end of the day, this series was incredibly competitive.
He's cursing, Homesmack.
Kill a decent amount of drones, but honestly, there's so many drones here. Oh my god. Oh, that placement. The greatest drop placement the world has ever seen.
Flash went up 2-1 early in the set, with wins on his Zerg and Terran. However, the rest of the series didn't go his way, and he lost a game on each race, falling to Soma 2-4.
GG, Soma has done it, and he's in the finals, defeating the greatest gamer of all time, Flash.
Although his push for a 5th ASL title came to an end, he still had one more match to play against the Zerg player Larva in the 3rd place decider match.
Flash is trying to scout basically as late as... Okay, watch his face. Watch his face. He's about to see it.
Yeah, he's laughing.
In this series, he won with a convincing 3-0, with 2 wins on Terran. But the highlight came in Map 2, where Flash displayed just how prepared he was. He rolled Zerg and performed a sunken colony rush almost to perfection.
He did a strategy...
And again, it's this map. This map is so brutal if you're against random.
...has seen, and I remember watching a translated clip of Queen, who's been the best Zerg player in the world for a very long time, and he got, he's a 2-time ASL champion, right? So he's kind of like the king of Zerg, despite being named Queen. But he was like, when Flash did this one very particular move, Queen was like, how does he know that? How does he know that, right? Because it's like one of these things that maybe only the top few Zergs in the world know, and in fact are saving for their own Zerg versus Zerg on that match. But Flash just figures it out, right? Like the way that he thinks about the game is on such a different level that he sees these little things that you know, a more standard pro gamer just absolutely is not going to find.
그러니까 이정은 이건 다 그림 그려온 거야. 이렇게 하면은 이렇게 스포 운영을 하면은 서폿 와. 정은이가 없어. 와, 이 형이 미쳤어요.
The victory over Larva would be Flash's final competitive match before fulfilling mandatory military service. While he has since completed his service, Flash has made no commitments to compete in another ASL tournament as of yet.
Yeah, I don't think Flash is going to or can come back and win ASL with random. Obviously, going to the military generally interrupts people, and it takes them normally a while to get back into shape. I remember, like, Queen came back and he was looking really good, but it did take him like an additional year of playing to win a championship again. You know, the thing is, Flash was like really super peak when he went random. Like that was truly the peak of his career, probably over the, you know, the 3 OSL, 3 MSL victories back in Kespa. Like, he had won something like 4 ASLs and was destroying everyone all the time. So I think that was like a very special moment. If Flash chose to continually play random, there's always the chance that he hits the right races in the right spawns on the right maps, and like you can win, and you can definitely string something like that together, and you know, he might out mind game people and stuff as well. But with someone seriously playing random and everyone watching it, people start to figure out better not only how to play random but how to play against random, which is something we didn't really have before.
Yeah. He's
Despite
right.
finishing third,
We also saw a big uptick in people playing random on ladder. There was a lot more people playing random suddenly.
Flash's run at ASL 10 will likely go down as one of the greatest performances in esports history. He came prepared, managed to win even on his weakest race, and showed just how high the skill ceiling is for Brood War. Ultimately, it's clear that this run will never be matched by another player, so even if it's the only time Flash competes with random, it'll be a run that will be remembered for a long, long time, and another badge of honor on Flash's already undisputed status as the GOAT.
Great video, guys. That's AshCon Esports. Thank you for watching that. One thing I would like to add here, I would be very interested if Flash ever comes back. Would he be willing to play either Protoss or Zerg? And could he win with that? That in some ways to me would almost be more impressive than random, would be to just full-on switch races. A good amount of the games that he won, he did get Terran, and then we had the island map that I think was so punishing to players who didn't know his starting race, because, you know, if you can't at least scout early to try to get some idea of what you're up against, it's really hard to have any healthy position in the mid game. So just some thoughts out there. I'd love to see him play Protoss or Terran, or to see him have another run if he ever comes back. That's also to be decided here. Next ASL season is just around the corner. That should be announced soon, so be on the lookout for that. Again, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this kind of content in the comments. And go to tastelessthreads.com where you can find my merch. And I guess that's it. Have a good day. Stay safe out there. I'll see you in another video. Bye-bye.